Good morning. Welcome to the 2019 Sloan Sports Analytics Conference Competitive Advantage Talks presented by Ticketmaster. My name is Jason Rayhout. I'm a first-year MBA student here at MIT Sloan, and it is my pleasure to introduce our next presentation, Optimizing a TV Tune-In Campaign, Thursday Night Football. The presentation will last for 20 minutes plus 5 minutes for Q&A. There will not be a microphone, so just please stand up and enunciate so Christine can hear your question. With that, please help me introduce Christine Kim, Senior Director of Marketing for the National Football League.
Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Apologies in advance if I cough or drink a lot of water. I'm getting over a cold, but I'm not contagious, so don't worry. I asked 2 doctors. All right. Okay, let's see. I'm just waiting for it. Oh, brilliant. So I'm Christine Kim. I'm responsible for media strategy for the NFL. I work on initiatives like Thursday Night Football Tune-In or the NFL Draft or even the Combine, which is going on now. And what media strategy means is planning whether paid media or leveraging some of the earned media we get through our broadcast partners to support our marketing initiatives. So really finding out what that right balance is between what we get through deals or through our own assets or through paid media. So for my career path, I've worked about 15 to 16 years in real jobs. Primarily, most of my experience is in digital marketing, so I've worked at eBay and HomeAway with most of that experience, both in the US and the UK. I highlight the digital marketing experience because this sort of gave me the idea for this session. So when I started at the NFL, they said, okay, you need to be able to drive tune-in on a TV. And everything I've optimized before was an impression and then a click, like everything you can just track digitally, and then, for instance, like a bid on eBay or a new user registration at HomeAway. So you could optimize every step of that sort of marketing funnel. And with Thursday Night Football, most of the viewership is actually on TV, so I thought, how are you gonna optimize that? You can just do a big, reach approach, but believe it or not, we don't have massive marketing budgets at the NFL, so it's a bit of a fun challenge, but there are ways you can optimize the campaign, and that's what I'll go over today. Also, I did have 3 years at ESPN, which got me sort of into the sports media world. I worked on the products then, but with the marketing angle, so the marketing was consistent throughout my career. Okay, so just a quick crash course on marketing before we go into how to optimize TV and digital media. There's a few steps, main steps of the planning process of, again, using Thursday Night Football as an example. There's some goals and objectives set, so there'll be drive viewership for the franchise or grow the franchise brand. Then there's sort of the research, which we call situation analysis, and that is how did we do last season, what worked, what didn't, how does the schedule look like this season, what partners do we have, we take all of that into consideration. And then the last 3 are highlighted because that all goes into what that optimization looks like for TV and digital. So the strategy is really where the media plan is put together. So we look at who our target audiences and who the growth audiences are, and then what that media mix is. Do we need to put ads on TV or on digital or social, and what is that mix? And then the creative approach. So you want to make sure that your ads and your promos actually appeal to the audiences that you're going after. So next, for schedule and implement, the campaign goes live, and you would schedule exactly when you need to start your commercials, for instance, or your digital campaign. And there is even optimization for that as well. Which day is the best to put maybe a game preview video about the game versus like just tune-in information. And then lastly, report and analyze, so that's more that rinse repeat once the reporting comes out. You can even optimize a tune-in campaign weekly, and there's value to some of that season ending recaps as well, but that's more of you get the data and then I'll be able to say, okay, next week, here's what I want to do better to get a higher conversion. So again, focusing on those 3. we'll go into the media plan overview. So the data and the segments in here, they're just illustrative. So if you want to know exactly what the target segments are for the NFL and marketing plans, you'll just have to work on my team. So in this example, we have the target audience. So it's NFL fans or fans of the matchup teams. So if the Browns are playing the Jets, typically those fans like to watch the games. And then the next level is the adults 18 plus in age, and then the growth segment would be females 25 plus. So beyond just who the fans are, we just want to be able to target that next level. Then for media mix, we found, okay, in the situation analysis, we know TV, the ads that are on TV and on digital convert the best. And so that's why we're going to run media on TV, so that's commercials. And then on digital platforms, which is like a display ad or maybe emails or social networks. So I put the value add in each because they have different purposes. So for TV, it's a mass reach play. You can reach a ton of people with a 30-second ad in one go. And then on digital, it just allows for more targeting features, and it's also a lot cheaper. The ads are just some examples of visuals that we did actually run in season, so those aren't made up for the Browns-Jets promo. We had some TV spots running on broadcast networks and games, and then some social assets and just some banner ads that, of course, were targeted perfectly because the game did really well. And then lastly, with comms phasing, so that's more of like, we want to make sure with the audiences that we have and then the media that we have, when do we want to run it? So that's where we can optimize. Is it better to promote 10 days out or 3 days out? And sometimes it depends on which platform. So is social better day of the game versus TV? So that's a lot of that analysis can be done, and it's just fascinating that those are the 3 areas that we will go into on how I found you can optimize. Okay, so we'll go into TV media measurement and optimization first. So there's a ton of tools out there, but the one that I will focus on, I guess, for the session is with Nielsen. So what Nielsen can measure is, okay, out of all the TV promos we have out there, which broadcast network had the highest conversion for us? So there could be broadcast network A that had hit 1,000 people, but only 2 people watched. So it's not that good of a conversion. How can that help me next season? I can just say, okay, well, we don't want that much inventory with your network. We want to just heavy up on a better converting network. There's also programming. So did the promos that ran in a game convert better than out of game? So maybe it was a post-game show, or maybe it was another sport. That kind of analysis is available as well. And then, as I mentioned, with recency, do people convert if they saw the ad 3 days out versus 1? That's available. And then lastly, the audience segment. So did adults 18 plus convert better than females? And what is that kind of right mix to make sure that you're still appealing to your core avids and also appealing to your growth segments and optimizing for both? So here I thought you couldn't optimize TV, but there are several ways that I've just discovered in the last 2 seasons. So what the visuals actually show is at a high level how Nielsen actually calculates all of this. So ultimately, the equation with the people wearing the socks show at the very left, it's the probability of tune-in. So they take a few key factors into consideration. They look at, the TV viewing behavior, the characteristics of who the person is, and what promos they saw. They also add in a few other different, I guess, bespoke analyses, such as they'll look at, okay, well, what are behaviors and attributes of people that watch games every week, and they make sure that they take that out of the analysis, so you're not already accounting for people that would have watched anyways. And then the graph on the right is at a high level how incremental tune-in lift is calculated. So it's a pretty easy formula. It's just people who have been exposed to an ad versus unexposed to an ad and what that difference is, and then you can then dig into how they were targeted or who they were or what their behaviors were. Okay, and here are just a few of the kind of high-level graphs that we use to analyze the data. Again, these numbers are just illustrative. They are not the holy grail of NFL conversions. So the first is really, it's a common media math metric called region frequency. So we look at, with the line graph, like all the different segments, and we say, okay, well, one of the axes is a campaign reach, and the other is a percentage of game tune-in, which is our conversion. So the takeaway here is that increased exposure is associated with higher tune-in. So that kind of reporting is available. And then next is really if we take a look at by audience segment. So if we say, okay, we want to measure persons 18 plus, females 18 to 49, and females 25 to 54. You could look at the reach, so how many people did that campaign actually hit, what the tune-in was, and also the frequency. So how many times does that person have to see the ad in order to convert? So again, that tune-in lift is always that KPI that we're going after for optimizing TV. Next, we'll go into digital measurement. So on the digital side, it's pretty fascinating as well, because for the TV tune-in, it is what I described earlier in my experience, where it is all within the same platform. So with digital, the way that it works is there's pixels that are put on your campaigns, and they tie it to a linear tune-in event. So how that works, there's a tool that we've tested called Samba TV. They use what I call really interestingly semi-creepy technology. So the way I'll describe it is if you're at your home, you have a Wi-Fi network that your smart TV is hooked up to. Now your mobile device is also hooked up to that same Wi-Fi network. So Samba TV can tell, okay, when I have my smart TV on and I saw an ad for Thursday Night Football, did I watch the game? It could also tell, did I watch the game after I saw a promo on my phone? Because it's all connected to that same Wi-Fi network. So then it can tell that exposed versus unexposed percentage based off of you just opting into all the kind of next settings when you set up your smart TV. So their sample size is actually pretty representative enough for us to say, okay, well, do these trends align with what we're seeing with some of our other kind of research tools? And it's been a great way to think about how you can optimize digital for a TV event and how analytics has actually evolved with, I guess, technology as well. Bless you. Okay, so with that digital media measurement, some examples of some optimizations we can do. Most of this is more frequent, so it's on a weekly basis. Can do A/B tests and say, okay, I want to show people with an ad that says Thursday Night Football, watch tonight, another ad that says watch next Thursday, which one actually did better, and that kind of tune-in lift is available to enable creative A/B testing. You could also do testing on audience type. So if I'm targeting adults 18 plus versus females, which ones had a higher tune-in rate? And so and the beauty of this is also that each week we get the results, and we can optimize every week based off of what we see doing well. What I didn't include in here, because I haven't actually run that analysis yet at the moment, is they also do, this is all kind of optimizing on the digital campaign. They also look at if you have seen a TV campaign and digital at the same time, like what does that optimization look like versus people who just saw the TV ad or just saw the digital ad. So a lot of cool stuff ahead on that. Okay, in closing, overall, I guess it was a myth buster for me that I thought linear tune-in was very old, and I was going to go backwards in my career thinking about building a marketing plan and media plan to drive game viewership. But it's actually pretty awesome on the way that technology and research have advanced with tools like Nielsen and Samba. You can improve your viewership and conversion for each game using the tools that are available today. And I think the next step for me on what I'm excited about learning about more is how we can integrate streaming into the mix. So although it is not the lion's share of total viewership of a game, it's still growing pretty quickly. So really, how do you optimize for streaming and linear tune-in for the right audiences? So the formulas just get a bit more complex, but I have no doubt we'll be there pretty soon. Okay, that's it for me. Any questions? Yes. I'll have to repeat the questions, so I'm not just...
I guess with kind of the crackdown on data privacy, specifically in Europe right now, and then possibly coming over to the States, how do you see that affecting whether it's cookie tracking or other digital metrics that the industry is using now to calculate things like ROAS and whatnot? So I guess like where do you see the industry going with that in this crackdown?
I hope they don't do it because then I can optimize. But I guess from all of our other research tools that we do use, whether it's Samba or Nielsen or any other kind of tools, they seem confident, of course, that it wouldn't go anywhere. But for me, I feel like it's been happening in Europe. But yeah, I guess I'm not sure if my gut says it wouldn't happen in the next 5 years. But I'm sure there'll be a way to approach optimization in a different way that I guess privacy laws haven't heard of yet. JP over there?
Yeah, you mentioned streaming a little bit, and I was wondering, with that being kind of a experimentation level with the NFL, especially on Thursday nights, how have you been able to take the greater data you're getting from a streaming platform and apply that back to tune in on classic TV, given that it's the same end experience for the consumer?
Got it. So it's a question. How do we get a total viewership number from both watching on a linear TV and
No, are you able to, with this Thursday night streaming, have you been able to take learnings from that and the wider data you get and apply that back to non-streaming but broadcast TV?
We haven't yet, but it is something that we're looking into. But that data is feasible to track and report on, but we just haven't married the two yet. Yep.
How do you consider illegal streaming in sort of your market research? Is that considered a success? Is that something that you can't really measure? How does that work?
So the question was, how do we measure illegal streaming or not? At the league, with the data that I have, we do not measure it. As part of any kind of optimization efforts, we don't include it in any kind of press releases on viewership numbers. I do know that obviously it's rampant, but that's just not something that I can personally incorporate into some of my planning and strategy. But we do know that it's there, and I don't know what percentage it is, but it is something we're keeping an eye on. Yep.
Samba was interesting to hear about. Are you able to, it sounds like somebody sees a digital ad, you can then tie that to a stream. Back to the broadcast on TV.
Yeah, so what you described, so the question was with Samba, actually I'll describe what I'm doing. So what we're doing, what we have done today is you saw an ad on your digital device and you tuned in on linear TV. It is feasible to tie it back to a streaming event as well. It's just not something that we've done to date, but other clients of theirs have. So you can say, I saw an ad on linear TV, and then I saw an ad on digital, and then did I stream or watch on TV? So that is available. It's just not something we personally have looked into at the moment, but it's pretty interesting. And again, just knowing that that's available, and just all the different ways you can look at the data from there is, as you know, people do have sort of that second screen experience, especially with sports. Yep.
How often are you integrating or calling on data about the initiatives and what's happening on a team level outside of wins and losses into how you're using your strategy?
Got it. So do you have a specific example or just like in general?
Like one particular team has some big initiative that they're rolling out, and there's a lot happening outside of the wins and losses. Is that something that you're integrating into your plan of how you're going to attack a particular game that they have coming in?
I would say the changes have been minor, if at all, because the wins and losses and records are one thing. But for instance, if a bunch of the key players are out because of injuries or they're saving, I guess, their health for their playoffs and such, that's something we'll take into consideration when we measure. Okay, I try to create an arbitrary score of the value of a game. So is it going to be harder to drive tune into because it's a tougher matchup or the key players are out? Or I guess in that sense, that's really what I think about when knowing what to turn up or down and why. So that's definitely things beyond a record that we look at, but it's not a major factor to date. Hopefully no one gets injured and it becomes a minor factor forever. Yeah.
For the results of your studies, do you break it down by team or matchup? And if you do team
So the question was, with the data we get, do we tie it back to a team or a matchup? And then is that used for future the future NFL schedules? We do analyze by matchup and by team. Helps with things like geo-targeting or seeing where kind of local fandom is and if we can do a special activation in those markets. We don't use it to dictate the schedule, or at least I don't, moving forward. So that's another team at the league that I guess they're in some bat cave for several months, putting hundreds of thousands of different iterations of schedules together. I'm not sure if that's one of their factors, but from a marketing perspective, they haven't asked me yet if I had any input into the schedule. I would ask for Cowboys and Patriots games every week, but even though I was a Raiders fan, but yeah, if they ask me, I'll come back and speak again. Yeah.
From a digital media mix perspective, what are the channels that you have found to be more effective at driving? And then two-part question.
Yep.
Have you tried any direct communication with fans, email, or other channels?
Yep. Absolutely. So the question was, within the media mix, are there certain channels that work better than others? And then the second question was, is there anything we do to communicate directly with the fans outside of kind of the broad buckets I had mentioned? So first, on media mix, it does depend on, I guess, sort of the value of that game or the type of game. So generally, TV and digital work well together at the moment versus just TV or just digital. But again, if it's a great matchup, like let's say it was that Rams-Chiefs matchup that on Monday Night Football, that probably didn't need any help anywhere. Like, everyone just knew about it. It even sold out in like 3 days. So, but generally, I guess for like a mid-tier matchup, TV and digital work well together. But again, TV is really expensive, and in that sense, we need to really make sure, okay, what is based off of our budgets and all of our media inventory, what games are worth investing in more marketing dollars where we can see some lift, and what are the right channels there? To your second question about, I guess, methods that like email or fan engagement, some elements of our marketing plan include what we call sort of experiential ideas, where we try to host a viewing party for the fans locally, or a tailgate, or something that just connects a bit more with the fans that, again, isn't measurable, but I guess I'm still able to sleep at night. It's still really important for us to connect beyond an advert. We do send emails to fans in our database each week to tune in, and we certainly optimize those assets from there. So, short answer, yes. Yeah.
What portion of your budget is going into TV versus digital, and do you see that changing over the next few years?
The question was, what portion of my budget goes on TV versus digital, and do I see that changing? So to tell you the percentages, again, you would have to join my team, so I'm sorry I can't tell you today. But to answer your second question, yes, I do see that changing. But probably, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
How do you differentiate between your conversion? You can get a conversion rate from the people, how much of the people will see the ads and they're tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
How do you determine whether that's causal, that the ad is leading them to tune in, versus your advertising to choose the type of people that will watch the game?
Yeah, got it. So we do have test and control sets, and so within all the tools, they'll try to normalize for people that always watch games on Thursday, or heavy viewers that watch almost every game, or are in that kind of top tier of our target audiences and viewing behaviors. So the tools we have do try to normalize for that, so we're not just fishing with where the fish are. And so yeah, I'm confident these measurements work, but it's a good question, and something that we have questioned the research tools as well. Yes, sir.
How do you account for factors that evaluate the success of the campaign that how do you evaluate factors like what else is there happening on Thursday night, like the programming, weather forecasting,
So the question was, how do I account for factors that, I guess, outside of the football control, whether it is a weather issue or other programming on Thursday night, et cetera. We generally know what other programming is on or what would take up sort of that, the day in the life of one of our target audiences on Thursday, so that's certainly something that we consider. So for instance, let's just say the Oscars were on Thursday, or sometimes there's even Star Wars premiere when one of our NFL Network exclusive games are on. And those are things that we consider, and sometimes we're like, oh, is it worth investing in if that's if the target audiences are kind of the same, and is it just wasting money if we put some media dollars behind this campaign? And we've tested throughout the years, and I mean we do look at all those macro effects that might compete with the time of our target audiences, and we do make sure that our plans do incorporate that. With things like hurricanes that you can't really predict, those are, we typically, if we can, pause a campaign if it's, for instance, in Florida and it's like Miami versus Tampa Bay. We try to pivot as quick as we can, knowing that it's not always possible for things we can't anticipate. But, yeah.
So kind of building on that question with your Jets-Browns example, that was Baker Mayfield's debut.
Yep,
So
in the second half.
Right, so I was going to ask, like, did you track those metrics between the first and second half?
Yes.
How much of the viewership is attributed to for your ad campaign versus Baker getting to play?
Yeah, so there is data that looks at every different time increment. So Tyrod Taylor, or Tyrod, I'm not sure how he pronounces it these days, he started the game, and in all of our marketing collateral, it had Sam Darnold and Tyrod Taylor. And we're like, gosh, it'd be great if Baker played, because then it'd be the two top rookie quarterbacks. And when we can look at the beginning of the game and say, okay, did we see more viewership than we expected to in the beginning of the game? Because Baker wasn't there, and he was rumored to not. I mean, we didn't expect him to play. And then we look at the second half of the game, and I mean, there is the data that shows that it was a huge uplift. When he came in, the game got really exciting, and because I think the Jets were winning in the beginning. So with that, there is more that I think there's even second by second, so, minute by minute, every 15-minute increments that we look at. Okay, for people that came in a little bit later, a lot of that is probably not because of the marketing, right? It's just social or just chatter out there. I got maybe 5 alerts saying, Baker's in the game, watch now, and a lot of that is sort of, I guess, organic. It's, we don't have a marketing campaign that says, okay, if this great situation happens, should push a bunch to media then. But it is something, we're considering. We've done it, I think, with a few other campaigns, like, for instance, the Combine last year when Shaquem Griffin had a great Combine drill. That was something that we're like, we should really boost our posts just so we get broad awareness about, a day in Combine that nobody would have ever watched. So yeah, for that Cleveland Jets game, we haven't done anything marketing-wise, I guess mid-game, but it is something we are considering, and yes, the tracking is available. Yeah.
How do you balance the NFL's media spends and plans with the network's plans? Do you guys collaborate on that? How does it all go?
Yes. So we definitely work with broadcasters to try to collaborate as much as we can on making sure that our plans are complementary and not competing against each other. So we overall have the same goals of driving viewership of and interest in NFL games. So it is part of our planning process earlier on. So we know, okay, if all the broadcasters are doing all the heavy lifting, then maybe all we do is a brand campaign. If broadcasters were like, hey, we don't want to put any investment, we don't want to make any new creatives or anything, then we would put more dollars and resources towards that. So that is definitely, it is one kind of cohesive approach than, Fox doing one thing, NBC doing another, et cetera. Yep.
Based off the data you have at the league level, what would you recommend current athletes looking at their digital strategy? Maybe what platform is underrated or kind of emerging in your opinion?
So the question was, based off the data we have at the league, what advice or recommendations will we give the current players and athletes? That's actually better for the influencer marketing team. They actually do have a player social person that works very closely with the players, not just the top tier, but also the up-and-comers or the ones that aren't so known, to make sure that we can help them as a league amplify their posts or share any best practices, and just kind of, we help the player, we help, I guess, the league and the sport overall, but I'm not an expert in that yet.
I think we're gonna have to cap it there.
Okay.
And if you want to wrap up, otherwise.
Thank you. Great questions. That was more interesting than my deck. Thank you.